Hey, how's it going everyone? Dark Matter Editing here, bringing you another Photoshop tutorial. In today's tutorial, we're going to be having some fun creating an abstract 4K wallpaper. And what's nice about the techniques I'm going to show you today is you can add to it by downloading your own Google images and blending them in. Now, we're not going to go that far in today's tutorial. We just want to go ahead and set up the groundwork to get you started. So what we're going to first do is create the 4K wallpaper background. And what I did is I went to File, New, and then I just named it 4K Wallpaper. And then the 4K dimensions is going to be 3840 by 2160. But you can create the pixel dimensions however you want, including 1080p or 2K. You can also do 8K if you really want to. And then you're going to hit Create. And this white background will come up. Now what we're going to do is create a new layer by hitting the plus sign at the bottom right. We're going to hop on over to the gradient tool. And I think for today I want to choose maybe like a turquoise color and then maybe a black. And then hit OK. And then I'm going to choose the fourth gradient style over to the right. Just click anywhere in the middle. Hold Shift to straighten that line, and then I'm going to pull down, and then that will create kind of a black vignette effect around the edges. Now I'm going to hit Save. I've already saved this to a folder on my computer. And then what we're going to do next is create our custom star brush. So we'll do File, New, and then you could do Star Brush. And then I did 3000 by 3000. You want to keep this perfectly square since we're making our own custom brush. So go ahead and create that, and then we'll hop on over. We're going to go ahead and create a brand new layer. And then what we're going to do is create a brush. So to do that, we're going to start by clicking over to the polygon tool, or the shape tool as they call it. And for sides, I'm going to start with 8. For the gear icon, we're going to choose star. And then we're going to be able to start drawing. So let's go ahead and just start placing some random stars. And create some variance by spinning it a bit. You could add some more variance by changing the sides up here, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to keep it simple. And once you're satisfied with the amount of stars that you have, I'm just trying to really fill in the gaps here as best I can. We're going to choose the top polygon or star layer. Come all the way down, make sure to exclude the background layer. Right click, or make sure you hold Shift and then click on the bottom layer. Right click, and we're going to merge shapes so it creates one unified layer. Then what we're going to do is hit the eyeball swatch to turn off the background to create a transparency background. And then what we're going to do is hit Control A, which will select the entire image. Go to Edit, Define Brush Preset. We're going to call this Star Brush. Now, in order to get this brush to save, we'll actually hit Control D to deselect. We're going to go ahead and choose our brush settings. If you don't have this, you go to Window, Brush Settings up here. And then also check brushes, so you have both options up here. And then what we want to do is we want to add a new brush. So we'll hit this plus sign. We'll call that Star Brush. And that way it saves, because otherwise it's not going to save your brush. I'm going to create a new folder as well. This will be a fun thing to learn how to do. Let's call this Custom Stars. And then what we're going to do is drag your star brush in there. Looks like I accidentally created it twice, so let's go ahead and delete the second one. So now I have my own custom brush preset. Now we're going to flip back over to the 4K wallpaper. And before we actually start painting, what we're going to do is we want to make sure we go to the brush settings to edit this a bit. So let's go ahead and start with the size. Let's go ahead and bring this down to 1000 pixels. That should be good. And then we want to start creating some variants. So let's go ahead and increase the spacing a bit so that way they're just almost touching. Looks like 100% is good here in this case. Shape dynamics, let's create some size jitter. Not a whole bunch, just a little bit, maybe 60%. Then we're going to create some angle jitter, which will create some angle variance. So we'll put that to 100. Scattering is going to be important. We want to make sure that, you know, when you're painting, that it's pushing it around in vertical space as well as horizontal. Then we're going to increase the count. And this is kind of, again, based on your opinions. So I think 8 looks good. And that will about do it. Now there's other fun settings in here you could play with, but for today's tutorial, we'll keep it simple. Now, when we start painting, we want to make sure that we're painting on a blank layer. We don't want to paint over our gradient, because then when we're trying to edit the actual paintbrush, we don't have to worry about messing with the gradient layer. So I'm just going to move out. If you don't have the navigator tool, I do recommend this because it really helps you zoom in and out. That's also found in window and then navigators right here. Somewhere in the gray area, I'm just going to hold shift, click, and then I'm going to drag across. And you may want to do a second swipe, and that will become obvious in a second, just to kind of fill that in. And now this is where the fun begins. So we're actually going to hit Control-I to make sure that turns white. And the reason for that is because it's going to help us see what's going on. So what we need to do now is start getting rid of some of this density. I'm going to go over here to the kind of mask button. And we're going to start painting over this with the same brush. But we want to go over here on the left and change our brush to a black color, because otherwise this won't work right. And then we're going to do the same thing. Start over here on the right, shift, click, and then drag to the left. And you can do this back and forth as many times as you want until you get a cool effect that you really like. So I think that's awesome. I'm going to keep that. Now what's cool about doing this as a layer mask is you can actually right click and disable it to see the original, or you can actually just straight up delete this layer mask and then start over to get a new effect that you like. But I really like this. I think that looks good. And if you want to get really creative, you can click on the layer itself and then hit Control-I again to make it black again. But I want to keep it white. That was the main reason I inverted that to white. Okay, so the next part of the puzzle is creating the fog. Now this is going to be really fun. We're going to go ahead and create a blank layer. I've already done so. And then what we're going to do is change the second color here, the background color, to this lime green. And leave your foreground color black. And then we're going to go to Filter. We're going to go to Render. We're going to go to Clouds. Now, what we want to do is create a blend mode. So we'll change the blending mode to something like a soft light. I think that looks cool. Now, using that same layer mask tool, we're going to create a layer mask. Make sure black and white are selected here. White, basically, just so you know, maintains the image in the mask, and the black will delete. So that's how that system is designed. So we'll go to Basics, do black and white, and then what we're going to do is select the very first gradient style, and maybe we'll start from the top and just drag down. And we could do it a second time too. And what that's going to do is create like a green fog at the bottom just to add a little bit more depth to our wallpaper. Now what we can do is let's go ahead and duplicate the stars. And we're going to add a blur. So we'll go to Filter, Blur. Let's do a radial blur. Change this to Zoom. Let's pump this up to like 50. Best quality. And hit OK. Now that's a little bit too extreme. So what we want to do is kind of lower this opacity down a bit. Let's try 50. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, it's looking better. We don't want it to be too over the top because remember, you're going to be looking at this all the time. So, but we still want to see it. So 35 looks really good. I'm going to hit Control S to save a project. Now, I think what I want to do is actually remove the stars kind of in the center area here. So let's go ahead for right now and go over to our layer mask. We're going to actually go and choose a marquee tool, and we're going to actually draw kind of a square in the center here, like so. But we don't want a hard square, we want kind of a soft square. And what I mean by that is when we fill this with black, we don't want like a straight edge to appear. So we're going to go to Select, Modify, and we're going to go to Feather. Let's go ahead and pump this to 250. Then we're going to go to Shift Backspace to fill this layer mask in with black. And you'll see what this does. You're actually, and you do it again, you can kind of soften up that background a bit. And as a result, I think I'm going to increase the opacity to that lighting effect that we created. Okay, so there's only a few more things left that we have to do in order to finalize our abstract background. So the two star layers that we made, the lighting effect and the actual stars, we want to change these to the overlay blend mode by clicking on this drop down. And that's going to make a substantial difference in making sure it's not too extreme. And also it kind of breaks it up a bit. The white kind of blends in with the green as it goes upwards towards the blue. And it creates more of a holistic image versus things kind of stacked on top. It looks a lot more professional this way. And that pretty much does it. I mean, that's your 4K background. You don't want to go too crazy with your wallpapers because, you know, cleanliness is really important, especially when you're trying to find the folders and files on your desktop and the icons. But a couple other fun things I can show you as well. If you create an adjustment layer by clicking on this little icon at the bottom, that little semicircle, you can really go crazy with this. You can go to hue saturation, for example, and you can actually move the hue bar, and you can kind of change the color of the entire image. And then you can really get fun, like a cyberpunk look. Lowering the saturation a bit can help if it's too much, and then increasing or decreasing the lightness. You could also make it all one color by hitting the colorize button. This isn't my preferred way to do it, but you know, everyone's different. Let's delete that. Maybe add a different one. You could do curves. This one's fun if you want to add some more contrast. And it looks really cool that way too. And you can really play around with these adjustment layers to get an effect that you like, just based on this tutorial alone. Especially if there's something that I did that you don't like. You could do invert, for example. That looks kind of cool. Let's delete that. You could do a mixture of different ones, obviously. Pattern. You could do pattern, and then you could play around with the blending modes. And then like you could lower the opacity, for example. Then create a more texturized version of this. That looks really cool, just like that. So you can really play around with this. And I hope you learned something from this tutorial today, and I will see you on the next one.